So you're going to start, Scott?
Oh, you've just hit one, Jay. I think it was driving 95 miles an hour.
Well, the purpose of me hitting one was to hit a ForeRight to match the name. Which I did.
After you hit that, we said, hey, that's a good lead.
Yeah.
That's a good
Nah, it was a
ForeRight.
tough shot. Just a bit of wind off the left. I think Alex has set it up. Lovely to have our little friend Alex Peterson here.
Our little friend.
Yeah.
We've given him the highest chair.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, Jay.
Yeah.
Having me, Scott. Am I the first guest on this?
First guest, yeah.
I feel honoured.
Which is a real shame because you've cut our viewership by 33% by being here. It's just my mum and Scott's mum now.
Don't worry, I'll still watch it.
Yeah. Cool. You will.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely will. Tell us what your role is, mate. Like, what do you do?
So I'm a specialist club fitter for Titleist.
Lovely.
So I get the opportunity to go around to a whole lot of different clubs and facilities every day and fit golfers who are wanting to get better, new kit, into gear, and just to kind of optimise their game and what they need to play better or have more fun or whatever they want.
Nice. Do you have any? I've actually got some serious questions. So
Yeah,
if
I
you've got
was
any,
going to say, should we get straight into it?
yeah.
What are your thoughts on Bryson saying that clubs aren't designed correctly to accommodate his club speed and ball speed?
That is a very good question, Scotty. I didn't actually hear this, to be honest. I remember you mentioned something about it in the first podcast. So I did watch it.
So he had to dial back his club speed because he felt like the bulge and roll, I think, wasn't enough. There wasn't enough bulge and roll to accommodate his ball speed if he mishit it.
So, say for example, if he was hitting out of the toe, would the ball not start enough?
Correct,
to the
and
right?
it crossed the centre line and went too far left, so it needed to start further right and hopefully come back to centre.
I mean, it does sound like a bit of an excuse to me, to be totally honest. But look, there could definitely be some merit there, but I'm not sure how much more the equipment companies could go with. I'm not sure what the legal limits are either, if there is some restriction on how much bulge and roll there can be. But I'm assuming if they could go more, they probably would. I know there's certain other brands that adjust the face. You know, TaylorMade have got their twist face to accommodate for those toe. I threw up a little in my mouth. To accommodate for that slightly more toe stroke, slightly more heel stroke, and I believe Cobra did that previously as well in a slightly different way. So it's not like the manufacturers aren't looking at something like that. There are much more intelligent people who earn a lot more money, kind of working on that one.
So just for people like myself, TR2, lovely head. What is bulge and roll?
So it's essentially the curvature of the face. So bulge coming across here. So if you strike it out of the toe or the heel, the ball. If you start out of the toe, the ball's going to start further right and then curve back to the middle. And then if you hit it out of the heel, it's going to start further to the left and then curve back to the centre. So off-centred strikes are going to be a little bit less penal.
So Bryson's saying if we had more of that, you get away with more.
It seems like at higher speeds he's saying that, I guess it's not enough for him and it's going too far left. It's not starting far enough right. So
why does it go left, mate? When you hit it out of the toe, why does the ball go left?
So it adjusts the spin axis of the ball. So if you think about, they quite often use like gears to demonstrate it. A little bit like that. So when the head kind of opens up, it creates that curvature, or I don't want to call it left spin because there's only back spin, but it allows the ball to curve further left because of that what we call gear effect. Right.
And so if it was a dead flush face, no bulge and roll, it would. Well, wouldn't it then start straight and hook? Because isn't Bryson asking it for it to start further right with more bulge and roll? Like if this was dead straight across here, would it then start straight and then just go hard left? Whereas out of the toe, it's pushing it out to the right and then curving back.
In all seriousness, I don't actually know.
That would make sense because if he's asking it for it more of it to start it right.
Yeah. So the curve on the face affects the face to path when you strike it. So effectively moving the face to path that way to allow for more, but then because of the gear effect tilting the axis, so if the face to path was here, it's just going to start there and just go, I think.
So I was thinking more so with the gear effect, and we can probably cut this, but
we don't do any editing. You might find that hard to believe with the slick promotion that it is.
So I was thinking,
Production.
because of
Cut that bit.
because of the lack of like gearing and twisting, it just stays out there. It doesn't actually come back.
Yeah, that's
so like
fair.
there's no like tilting of the spin axis to then get it back that way.
Yeah.
That's
interesting.
what I thought anyway.
I don't know if I mentioned this last podcast, and I was thinking about it while you were talking. I can't remember who it was, but they were playing around with the old wooden heads and wondered why they curved, and someone shaved one flat to see what would
I
happen.
remember you talking about this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not on the podcast, I don't think.
And sprayed it everywhere, but I can't remember which direction. But it's a bit harder probably to get that on the grinder and get it flat.
Yeah.
But,
That ain't happening.
yeah,
Because
it'd be interesting to see, almost like hitting a dimpleless golf ball.
that goes nowhere.
Yeah.
That's like the gear effect where it tilts the spin axis to curve back.
That's good. When I was young, just got to remind me there, when I was younger, because I'm a little bit older than you two.
Do you want to tell us how much?
Well, you didn't need to be that emphatic with that. You could have just said, no, not really. We were about the same age. So I grew up playing with Ballada balls, and it was a bit of a badge of honour as to, I only use my ball for 9 holes and then I throw it away, And literally, if you used it for 18 holes, you literally either hit no bunkers or you didn't hit any skinny shots, because if you did either of those, your ball was out. With the modern day ball, the Pro V1, how long... And I know that it's how long's a piece of string because it depends on bunkers and how many trees you hit. Scotty hits heaps of trees.
Or lose them.
Or lose them, yeah. But, like I'll look into the bag and I'll kind of, that's probably good enough. That's got another round left in it. And that ball and I have that conversation maybe 4 times.
Sure.
Is there a time limit where you're like, you're not, to your point there about where you said no dimples on the ball, doesn't fly as far. Is there a point where you should probably just go, I need to just suck it up here and rip a new one out of the sleeve?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question. We actually spoke to some of the guys over in the States about that exact question, and their response was, as soon as you start to see some like visible like wear and tear, that's going to start to affect the aerodynamics. Obviously, the bigger the wear and tear, the more it's going to affect it.
Yeah. Do they get their balls for free, those guys you're talking about?
They might have a couple million somewhere.
Yeah.
As soon as you start to see that visible wear and tear, that's when the aerodynamics and everything is going to start to deteriorate.
Yeah.
So balls may not start online as much, may not have the similar launch conditions that you would with a brand new ball. So, I guess it is up to you, because golf balls aren't cheap. And not a lot of people can go through 3 balls a sleeve per round.
Yeah, what would the pros do? Like, because that was the old days of Ballada, and they would have done every 6 holes, I reckon.
Yeah.
And as I said, pushing it out over a round was marginal. But what would the pros? Is it just every round, or is it every 9 holes?
I'd guarantee you there wouldn't be many pros that would go through a round with just 1 ball.
Right.
They would be swapping them out multiple times. 3 would, if I could put an average on it, I'd probably say 3. I remember hearing a story about Dustin Johnson. He apparently swaps out a ball every birdie, and there was one time where he had about 12 birdies or something ridiculous, and he was actually running out of balls because his routine was to keep swapping them out.
That sounds dumb.
So Ernie Els does this. He reckons that there's only 1 birdie in a ball and he swaps every ball. But that's bullshit, because when he grew up playing, he was obviously quite good and couldn't afford all the balls. I'm guaranteed there was more than 1 birdie in a ball.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That makes sense to me more about bogey. I'd be like, get rid of that. That's out.
I'll get rid of it.
You've had your chance, son. You're out. Scotty does that. He sometimes throws his clubs away.
Yeah, I'd wanted to hear a story. I was wondering could we get Scotty to hit his 7-iron tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you got
that one of your fitting ones.
Is it windy tonight? Do you reckon is it windy tonight?
I hope so.
Yeah. Do you know, if you start the round, because Dustin started the round with 12 golf balls and was a bit nervous, if you start the round with 3 golf clubs and you throw one of them up a tree and it gets stuck, far out, it makes the rest of the round fucking hard, especially a critical one like 7-iron. So Scotty played speed golf this morning.
I may have heard something about this actually.
Yeah.
A little whisper. Oh, look, it just gets around.
And it wasn't me. I haven't seen AP today.
I haven't seen it at all. Yeah.
So, yeah, Scotty played speed golf. What'd you have?
You don't make many birdies in speed golf. So Ernie Ellis.
Hey, what'd you have? I don't give a shit
I
about
don't carry enough golf balls to throw away a golf ball every, so I throw away a club every birdie.
Yeah. What'd you shoot?
Lots.
What number?
85.
Yeah, that is lots.
Yeah.
I
had 7 of the first 10 greens. I was quite happy with that, but I did make a 10 on
you
the
made
par
a 10.
5.
Yeah.
Do you take a putter? No. Okay.
Yeah, we actually had to hear about his 10 this morning. That was a tough listen.
Mm.
And ironically, I don't think that was the hole where he threw a 7 iron away.
No, what did you make on that hole?
10.
Were you
On your 3 or 7 iron.
Oh, I don't know if you want to know.
Yeah, we want to know about it.
I would like to know. Yeah.
So I took a hybrid out this morning. This plays into why the 7 iron's up a tree.
Okay. In replace of what?
So I normally take a 3-wood.
Okay.
And I don't hit a 3-wood very well.
That's brave.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
He
Brave to
doesn't
take a
do
3-wood. Yeah.
So I decided to take a hybrid out, and
it's actually the worst 3-wood. He's got 2 3-woods. They're both the worst 3-wood I've ever seen. Have you got it here? That repair job you tried to do on that one is horrendous. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
So I got a 3 hybrid and turned down the loft, which opens the face slightly. I don't want to miss it left around here, which I tend to do if I hit the 3-wood well. And then the first tee, I had a little draw. So that I was on the back foot.
This can be the whole podcast, man.
Yeah.
This takes ages. Just tell us where you threw the fucking
I was
club,
on the
man.
back foot already.
We don't care.
So then I had a couple of the weak ones that went right,
Yeah.
and that didn't feel good. And then you've got out of bounds down the left, but then I had another draw. Anyway, gets to the 15th hole. I had a weak one right. I'm in the 16th fairway. Got a pretty clear shot. Kind of have to draw it around the tree, but no immediate trouble. And I pulled it a touch and went straight towards the tree. And the little voice in my head was like, "Don't throw it, don't throw it."
I'll fucking
But
show
it was
you.
like it was like a parent telling a kid not to slam the door. Like if you say don't slam the door, what are you gonna do? You slam the door. So I aimed on the 16th fairway, but I missed it.
Oh no!
So
Just hung on too long. That must have slowed you down.
What did you do from there?
now there's a dilemma.
It's a critical club.
There's a dilemma now because it's stuck on the tree.
You're on the clock.
And I'm running and I'm like jogging. Going like, first of all, how do I get it down? I've only got two more clubs to throw up there.
Please tell me you didn't throw one up at it. Oh, my God.
So I threw a sandwich up, and as soon as it left my hands, I was like, oh no, this is going to get stuck up too. And then I forgot that it was going to come back down and nearly hit me in the head. I couldn't actually see the club, so it was a blind throw into the tree to just hope it came down. And I was like, this is timed, I've got to run, like I'm wasting minutes here. And the worst part about it is
That wasn't the worst.
the ball didn't hit the tree, it was 15 feet and I hold it for birdie.
Oh.
So I threw my club up a tree for a poor shot and I made birdie.
Wow.
Did you get it down?
So I went, the karma bit me instantly because on the 16th I finally hit the fairway with my hybrid and it was a perfect 7-iron. And so
what did you do from there? Did you
I
nuke
tried-
a sandwich or did
I
you?
tried to
Yeah.
and just dribbled it all on the ground.
Right.
And then on 17 I hit it right and I had a little gap that I could hit through and it worked out alright because it was kind of a chip.
17 would be alright.
Yeah, it was a chip with a hybrid and that would leave me a wedge. But I hit a tree and it sat right next to the 135 marker, which left me 150 to the flag, and my 7-iron happens to go 150.
Yeah.
So instant karma.
I'd love to go back to the choice over the wedge versus hybrid to try and get it out. What went through your head there?
Well, you didn't want a long story, but I chipped hybrid twice during the round from closer, and it didn't end well.
Yeah. Okay.
So I thought I'll just hit a wedge, and if it comes up short, cool, I can chip.
Are you talking about
why'd you
up?
throw the wedge up rather than hybrid? What was your thought process on that?
Because neither of them were your club, so I'm interested to know. The only club that's...
because the wedge was heavier.
Yeah, okay. That does make sense.
Yeah.
It was the smartest thing I did all round.
It sounds like it may have been.
Didn't you talk about decision making last pod?
Oh, mate.
Yeah, but everyone has a dispersion. And I was aiming for the fairway and I missed it slightly left.
When you threw it, did you kind of get to hear and go, oh shit, no, don't throw it, but too late, oh fuck, is that why I went left?
I haven't thrown a club probably in about 10 years, but I used to throw them quite often. But it worked, like throwing the club did the job I hoped and sort of got me over it. But it kind of does the job about there. That's the kind of, you throw it in anger and you get to about there and that's kind of enough. So you don't even really need the release. So the fact that I did release it, and it was
it actually would look funnier if you didn't release it, because you just about knock yourself out.
Yeah.
I was actually throwing some balls back onto that mini range we've got one day. I think I've told you this story. I was just chucking them. The kids were picking them up, and I was chucking it that way, and I hung on to it. I whipped it out over my head. It's like, fuck! I felt like a moron. I'm not sure if you're allowed to say that anymore, but. So I get that whole hung on too long. Man, it was embarrassing. But I think the thing with throwing clubs
is... the rain glove.
He's got two gloves when he plays.
Oh, no.
There's two of the FootJoy, Weather Soft. No, not even the Weather Soft, the Rain Grips.
Rain Grips, yeah.
But the throwing clubs is a funny thing, and we'll get back to you and your knowledge. You know, if you're in the kitchen and you're cooking and you make a mistake, you don't really see many people pick up the frying pan and fucking biff that across the room. But in golf, it's relentless. The amount of anger you see and people just having a tantrum after they've made a mistake.
What really goes wrong? What goes wrong in the kitchen?
I don't know, but let's say you
compare it.
Oh, we've had some disasters when living together.
Who did you throw?
Since you two have split up, Scotty's diet has pretty much been hash browns and peanut butter on the same piece of toast.
I do remember those days.
Right.
Yeah.
Back to the fitting stuff, because one thing that, and I don't, as you are well aware, do too much club fitting, but one thing that used to challenge me, I would say, would be 3-woods, and people would be desperate to have a 3-wood, but most people couldn't hit their 3-wood as far as they could hit their 7-wood.
Can't do it.
Yeah, but it's a really hard conversation to have with someone, even with all the data. Oh no, but I need a 3-wood because, and then anyway, you can do whatever. But so I'm assuming that that's not uncommon. Have you noticed in the last few years a trend to, like we talked about it? I took your advice. I said, if you listen to that podcast.
I certainly did.
Yeah, so I bought the Game Improvement, or
the 4-iron.
The 4-iron, yeah. So, do you want to grab? I'll grab it because
okay.
I don't know what to grab actually. Don't bump the track, man. So you know where I'm going with this. So you may want to start, but is there a 4-iron in here or not? Well, so if I use that as an example.
Well, the issue, and you guys did kind of cover it a little bit in the first.
Meaty soul. That's because I listen to you though, AP.
I'm glad someone does. Launch and peak height is such an important thing, and you kind of, we want all of our clubs to peak out at the same height, and a lot of people don't understand this. Driver, 3-wood, 5-iron, 7-iron, 9-iron. We all want like the similar peak height. Don't get me wrong, we can have a little bit of fluctuation there. We're not perfect. We don't play on TV.
Yeah.
But the issue with 3-wood is that there's not a lot of loft, so therefore we can't get the launch or the spin because loft is pretty much the biggest influencer in spin. So to get those appropriate launching, we need to go higher in loft. And
when you're talking about loft, are you talking about like the loft at impact? How much loft you're presenting at the moment of impact? Yeah. So not just, you can't just put more loft on and think it's going to go further because it's going to go shorter. So dynamic loft.
Dynamic loft, yeah. But don't get me wrong, static loft. We need more loft statically to then also launch the ball in the air as well. Other things do come into that equation as well, like centre of gravity. Centre of gravity can often be a bigger influence than loft in terms of launch, not necessarily on spin, because spin is always going to be the biggest influencer there. But we need to get the ball up in the air for it to actually carry. And, one of the most common things I see is people actually like hitting the 3-wood really low.
Yeah.
And they go, oh yeah, but it runs forever.
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't really. They might get that 1 or 2 down, for example, down this, what hole's a good example here? Probably down the 6, obviously huge downhill.
Yeah.
It runs forever, of course it does, but on a very flat fairway, normal conditions, it is just going to pitch and lose energy. Gravity works the same on a ball if it's hit high or hit low.
Yeah.
So you may as well hit it higher for it to then carry further. So launch is the biggest problem when it comes to, if your example of 3 woods.
Yeah.
And what we'll normally do, we've got the option of a 16.5 degree head, 15 degrees being the normal 3-wood loft. So 16.5 degrees, so just to elevate that launch and peak height that little bit more. We also have our loft sleeve that we can raise by 1.5 degrees. So we can turn that 16.5, right up to 18 degrees, which would be considered more closer to 5-wood traditionally.
Yeah.
But there are ways around all of that. So just getting the ball up in the air, people don't.
So that would be,
enough.
if we go, that's the normal 4-iron. And then that's the other one.
So you can see just from construction, like the centre of gravity is going to be a lot further away from the face.
Yeah.
And when the centre of gravity is further away from the face and lower, it's going to raise.
So that's why they've got this bulbous bit at the
Yes.
back to try and pop it up.
Correct.
How many people do you think, of the people that you see that you fit, how many of them do you think, like, could you look into Scotty's bag and go, especially now because he's 7-iron short, but could you look into his bag and, as an example, and improve his golf without even necessarily changing the equipment he's got, but just the makeup and maybe removing you've still got a 3-iron, haven't you? A blade 3-iron? Yeah. And do you think that would have an influence on
100%.
almost everybody?
Oh, definitely. And, we look at the trends on tour. Okay, so 80% of tour players use a different model head in their iron set, and these are the best players in the world. So,
as in with the 4-iron?
Just with irons in general.
Oh, right.
So, Max Homa is probably the best example where he's blades up to 6-iron. And
when you say up to, you're talking about pitching
so
wedge?
So pitching wedge to 6-iron, yeah. And, he's looked at his data, and, his 4 and 5-iron are partly his weakest parts of his game. So they've gone, okay, how can we get better? He needs to hit it higher. So he goes blade up to pitch wedge 6-iron, then T100 in 5-iron, then T150 in 4-iron. So he's got a triple combo there. He then also uses T200 in a 3-iron. So he's got 4 different heads in his kind of...
4 successive clubs.
Yeah.
So what happens then to the 6-iron? Because I'm thinking that these ones here, well, can't see it, but off to my right, there's a gap of full sets. I'm assuming the 5-iron and the 6-iron are matched up loft-wise and distance-wise, but then you go and chuck one of these bad boys in it. What do you need to do to the 6-iron?
So 6-iron, depending on where you split, right?
Yeah, So it could be... in Max Homer's case, what would be done there?
Well, the 6-iron would probably stay where it is. It would actually be the 5-iron that they then change.
Okay.
So the difference between the blade and the T100, I believe, is 1 degree or maybe 2. So they've weakened it by a couple of degrees. And then again in the T100, T150 in the 4-iron, they've then weakened a little bit more. They're going to obviously work a lot closer, and rather than just going, oh, we'll match up the lofts and everything, they'll actually obviously hit them, bend them, hit them again, and work out using TrackMan data. To get those appropriate gaps and peak heights and things like that.
Yeah. So Max Homer gets that treatment. I'm assuming he goes into the Titleist tour truck every week and gets whatever he likes. Can you do that sort of thing for my dad if he comes in for a fitting? Totally. You can fit a set and tweak lofts and
tweaking the lofts we can't do on the spot like they do at TPI, and was actually having a good conversation. I was over there not too long ago and talking to Chris, one of the fitters there, and they were talking about when they bend them, they only bend them once, and then they either use them again, leave them there, or they get rid of them, because as soon as they start bending them more, they start weakening them, and then they'll just break. So there are a lot of clubs that they go through in that fitting process, so they go quite in depth. But if I was fitting Jack, we'd be able to do it pretty damn well and very, very close. And we know that if, for example, he's hitting his 5-iron, a metre lower than what he needs to, or even 2, we can just tweak the loft by a degree, and it's probably going to kick it up into the appropriate max heights and things like that. So
nice.
We have a very good idea of it.
Yeah, that's cool. And good that everyone, like anyone can get that same level of service that a tour player gets, basically, just not as quickly. They don't get it instantly.
No, of course.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So why should we get fit? Because you talked about the ball briefly and should change it when it starts to see some marks or things on it. But for me, I don't think I would notice a difference in launch in that. And with clubs, what difference am I going to see? Like I hit my 7-iron 150 metres now. It goes straight when I square the face up. Like why should I get fit to something else? I've had my clubs for 7 years now.
And that's a really good question. And what I'd say to that is, if you want to get a lot out of a fitting, I'd want you to come in kind of knowing what you're after. How could we get, I'd ask you the questions, how could we get your 7-iron better? Like, what do you need? Do you need consistency? You need a 7-iron.
Yeah.
Should we have a bit of a play with that?
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to sell them a 7-iron. And look, happy to do it at full retail through the club room.
I'm sure you are. Yeah.
So why don't you two do a fitting now, and I'll watch.
Sounds good. Yeah, totally. Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
Well, he hasn't got a 7-iron, so you're going to have to start with something else.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So I guess then the first question I'd ask you is, what do you actually want out of a fitting?
I want to have it close to the hole.
So dispersion
I want to be tighter. I feel
Be
like
serious here, because this is a good opportunity.
I feel like I hit my 7-iron, or my irons in general quite high.
Yeah.
So when I play, if it's ever windy, even just a breath of wind, I feel like it just goes, and I lose a lot.
Totally.
Yeah.
So
you lose a lot of distance there.
The next question I'd ask you is, what golf ball do you play? So obviously, golf ball is going to be a huge influence on what we fit you into. If you're using a Pro 1X and being the higher spinning, higher flying ball, we're probably going to be looking at changing that straight away.
What colour number is that?
Red is the Pro 1X.
So use a Pro V1.
Your Pro 1, cool.
Yeah.
And that's probably
So
where
it's a good start?
that's a good start. Yeah.
Nice.
And look, we may even look at, hey, if we need to bring that flight down even more, AVX could be a really good option. We'd probably discuss around the green, because it is a slightly lower spinning ball, depending on what you want around the green. We'd look into that in maybe a little bit more detail, probably not today. But all right, should we get you hitting a few shots with maybe just one of our stock standard 7-irons, and then we can kind of go through.
Right.
Do any tour players use the AVX?
I believe a couple of them do. The left dash is a lot more popular on tour, because that's the higher flying, lower spinning option. So again,
Pro V1 left dash.
Pro 1X left dash.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. 7-iron. So this is just our standard T100. Should I get this chair out of the way?
Yeah, get the chair out of the way. Yeah, well played, sir.
Okay.
Sweet. Sold.
Shit, that was easy.
Do you just want me to hit a few?
Yeah, hit a couple for me. So, if you, what's your bad shot? What do you consider your worst shot that you don't like? Is it the high spinny one?
Yeah, it goes high to the right and it just stays out there.
Sure.
So a little block. It doesn't curve massively, but just stays high right.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess from knowing you and knowing your clubs, your current setup is half an inch over and a couple of degrees upright?
Yep, correct.
Cool.
Yep.
You've just had 3 in a row dead straight pipes.
Yeah.
You're really good, Alex, at this.
I know, Jake. Let me just change some data here, because there's some other stuff that I do want. Okay. Okay, so if we just have a look at that sample size, are there any shots there that you want to...
I had a couple of them a bit thin.
You had a couple thin. Okay, let me just hide Jay's ForeRight. Was that one there a little thin? Oh, that one there was.
There you go.
That was one.
And maybe that 146 one.
Oh, no, no.
Maybe that one.
Oh, yeah. So, first thing to note, you
may still have one of my ForeRights in there.
Oh, I did get... Oh, sorry, I thought I got rid of that. I did. Maybe it's just showing on...
Oh, yes.
On there. Oh, no, sorry, it's the... You had 2 goes, that's
yeah,
right.
okay.
Okay. Don't know what I'm doing here. Groups. Okay, so first thing that I look at is like strike location.
Yeah.
So my job as a fitter is to get you hitting more in the middle of the face. Like that's number one for coaching, fitting, just golf in general. We want you to hit more of the middle of the face. Now I know, knowing you, that you've got a very heel strike tendency.
Yeah, so luckily enough, I can hit some balls in here occasionally, and my tendency is to hit it off the heel, and when it feels solid, it tends to be off the heel, and when I get the one that comes up on there off the like the geometric centre, it doesn't feel as good.
Is that with your? I remember.
Yeah, so
your
with
blades.
my clubs.
Yeah. When you did strike it out of the middle with this one, did it feel a little bit more solid?
No, did I get one out of the middle?
It's a good question. It's a good question. So, if we're breaking down some of this data, like clearly you've got a fair bit of speed there. 90 miles an hour is PGA Tour average. Height, so 33 meters. That there is actually almost optimal. If we brought it down to 30 meters, we might get a little bit more out of it, and we're not going to compromise our land angle. So you can see land angle there is one of the most important things when it comes to irons, that being the steepness the ball comes in to the green or to the ground. 51 is awesome. Absolutely awesome. Again, PGA Tour average is around 50, 51. So we're actually in a really good place there.
So just explain that a little bit. So the land angle, that's measured in degrees. So if it came at 45 degrees, it'd be like that.
Yep.
Anything flatter, so less than 45 is never going to stop.
It's running through. Yeah.
So 50 degrees.
Coming in nice and steep, so it doesn't have the opportunity to roll out too much. And if you've got a relatively good spin rate, which you actually do, like speaking of, talking about the high spinning ones, from what I've seen today, that's actually in a great window. And Titleist, we do talk a lot about the peak height. If we get that number right, I almost don't need to worry about the spin rate, launch angle, and land angle. They kind of all fit into that right zone, and that's why we talk a lot about matching up our peak heights in all of the clubs, because everything else kind of falls together.
So if that peak height was higher or lower, then those other numbers would be out.
They wouldn't be quite where we wanted them to be. In saying that, we can get around it. If you want to hit it a little bit lower, I'm going to load you up with spin. We're going to give you, for a 7-iron, over 7,000 spin, because then it's going to stall and then come down a little bit steeper. Okay. So there are different ways of playing around with it, and that could be, looking at changing the ball or something along those lines. I guess looking at your trajectories, we do have a little bit of a split, but in all seriousness, it's actually pretty damn good. I wouldn't mind maybe going through a couple of different shaft options and looking at the lie angle as well. If we look at the dynamic lie angle here, so TrackMan measures the bottom of the shaft here in relation to the ground, and that's going to give us our dynamic lie. Our standard with 7-iron is 63 degrees, so you're actually delivering the handle quite low this way, so toe sticks up. Whenever we have any kind of fluctuation in terms of toe up or toe down, it can affect start line.
Yeah, so there's a, if there's a golf tee around, there's a cool way to sort of demonstrate that, using
Maybe one of those might be able to.
Won't really do it, I don't think.
Probably won't do it just the same.
Sure, all these golf bags, there must be a tee around.
Nothing in those bags. No, definitely nothing there. Alright, so let's actually get to the fitting shafts here. So we know that you've got a lot of speed and we want a bit of stability. So we're going to jump into something quite stiff.
So the stiffness is something that's talked a lot about in club golf especially, and you hear a lot of people, I need a stiffer shaft, stiffer shaft. So what is the stiffness, what is it measured? Is there a measurement of how you can measure the stiffness of shaft, and how does that, like you've said, I need a bit of stability, so why would I go for that over something that's maybe a little softer or even more or even stiffer?
So what I'll do, rather than going quite complicated and in depth about how they actually measure it, we break down the shaft into 3 sections, so handle, mid and tip. A lot of the time we call this a bend profile, so where it actually flexes. With the Project X shaft, particularly in the 6.5, which is their designation for extra stiff, it is just extra stiff throughout. Like there's not a lot of change in flex there. If we then look at, say, something like a Modus, this is the Modus 3120X, it's super stiff in the handle, a little bit softer in the mid, and then even softer again in the tip, so it kind of gets progressively softer. Then looking at the...
So while you talk about that, so if it gets progressively softer, what could I expect to see the change in ball flight from that?
Typically, if you've got a softer tip section, we're going to be adding dynamic loft.
Okay.
So for you, where your issue seems to be maybe hitting it a little bit too high with a little bit too much spin, it's not really something that we're after. We'd want to look at something that's a bit more stable throughout, and even something like the Dynamic Gold, which has obviously been around for years, and it will be around for quite a few more. It's kind of stiff in the handle and then gets progressively stiffer towards the tip section. Okay. So therefore it's not going to deflect as much down in the tip, so you're not going to be adding as much dynamic loft. So the thing with shafts is we could talk all day about different bend profiles, but at the end of the day, a shaft doesn't actually make contact with the ball. The head is what makes contact with the ball. The shaft simply works with your timing to then create a slightly different delivery pattern, slightly different strike location, face angle, etc. Yep. So we want to find whatever shaft works with your delivery pattern to create a different result. So let's get you in, arguably one of the stiffest shafts on the market. Now, before we change any lie angles or anything like that, we always want to make one change at a time, because if we make more than one, then we don't know what has had the influence on the ball flight. So, Project X 6.5 in the T100. Cool, whenever you're ready. So the cool things about shafts is quite often I actually won't know what it's going to do to you.
Yeah.
We could, on paper, this is going to do X, Y, and Z, but a player is always going to override that. So that's why it's like, okay, this could be lower launching and lower spinning for you, but it might feel a certain way for you that you're then going to add loft or something like that. So a lot of the time, I actually don't know what's going to happen. So initially, how does it feel?
Yeah, I wish I could say that there's a big difference or something. something about it feels a little bit softer.
Okay.
I don't know if that's just that I struck it better.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously that one, I struck it out of the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Other than saying it feels nice, I can't really add much more than that.
That's all you really need to say. And here's the dirty little secret around shafts. If we put every single shaft that I have here on a robot with the same head, the results are going to be very, very similar. Okay? So again, it kind of just goes back to the point where shaft is just timing. It's just something that's going to work with your swing or not.
Yeah.
Give us one more. Okay.
Yeah, other than saying I like how it feels, I can't add much more than that.
So this is going to be pretty cool to look at. So in a lot of time, we actually don't need too many shots to determine the differences and if it's right for you or not. This is the original 7-iron that you hit, which, just so you know, is only an S300. So arguably a little bit softer, which should go a little bit higher, you'd say, or on paper it would. If we just have a look at that peak height, 33, this one here, which is again arguably the stiffer shaft, which should be lower spinning, has actually gone higher. So again, talking about shaft being timing and player overriding, what the shaft should do, is a really good example of it. Spin's also spiked up a little bit higher as well by about 400. So it's simply just getting a little bit too high. We've lost a little bit in carry. Stroke locations, there's still a little bit heel-sided, but not too bad. So
is there anything to do there? And I didn't see all the numbers, but the club speed was a couple of miles an hour faster.
Mm-hmm.
Would that instantly add a little bit more height?
It definitely can do, depending on what you are, or depending on how you are generating that speed. Are you generating that speed by releasing the club a little bit more, because it feels a little bit stiffer and subconsciously you feel like you have to. So if we had a look at the dynamic loft there, so 26.8, 25.9, so there's 1 degree less of dynamic loft, which could be a couple of 100 RPM, which then is going to kick things up. It's simply not what we want, right? So that kind of straight away tells me that maybe we want to look at something that loads a little bit more.
Okay.
All right, so, and we haven't actually changed the length of the shaft. We're sticking in standard. So again, I know that you're 1/2 inch over. Does it feel uncomfortable, the stock standard length?
No.
So one thing that I guess it annoys me a little bit is when someone comes in and they're fitted into an inch over and a couple of degrees upright, and a lot of the time that comes back from fitting off a lie board, tape under the sole, tape on the face. All of a sudden they hit the lie board, which you never hit off that kind of surface when you're playing. It's sitting up off the ground, things like that. Results start to skew. You're worried about hitting it because it makes a big loud noise. All of a sudden you've got toe strikes and toe sole pattern as well. And so we'll go longer and upright and they'll fix that. But a lot of the time that can have quite a detrimental impact on your golf swing. So I always like to start with standard. Even if you're tall, like how tall are you? 6'1", 6'2"?
6'1", yeah.
6'2". 6'2" on Tinder. So we'll start at standard. Again, hitting the middle of the face is most important. What's easier to hit the middle of the face with, longer or shorter shaft?
You'd think shorter.
Makes sense. Right. So let's jump into the Dynamic Gold X100. So similar profile to the first shaft that you tried. This is just now a constant weight shaft, so 130 grams.
What is a constant weight? What do you mean by that?
So we've got a shaft range called the AMT line.
Yeah.
AMT stands for Ascending Mass Technology. So you think about the launch, trying to hit a 4-iron and launch a 4-iron compared to a 9-iron.
Yeah.
A lot easier to hit the 9-iron high. Every shaft up in the bag gets 3 grams lighter. So pitching wedge and 9-iron is 130 grams.
Yeah.
And then 8-iron is 127, 7-iron is 124, etc., etc., etc. Just to help the longer clubs to get that height where we want it. How was that strike, by the way?
That felt better. That second one, the first one was
Cool.
You got good hearing, AP.
I heard that, Jay.
Yeah, he's dead.
So, all right, let's have a look at that. I will just erase that
Sherman.
heel strike.
Heel strike, yeah.
Heel strike.
You'll know when it's a Sherman, Jay.
So, first thing I'm looking at here is strike location. For the two, they were.
You guys were
really
talking
good.
and my back swung in the first one.
But again, we kind of look at that peak height, creeping up that little bit higher.
Okay.
Dynamic loft's not in too bad of a spot. For you, like if we could get that down to 25, 24, we'd probably start getting the peak height in a really good place. And this is where I'd talk to a player probably beforehand and get an understanding as to where they want to go with their golf. So are they just wanting to get better, mask some bad habits, not get any coaching, but just enjoy the game a little bit more? If that's you, then cool, we might change the lie angle a little bit, go into more game improvement, iron, things like that. For yourself, I know that you want to get better. That dynamic loft number needs to come down. And we can set up the club to encourage you to change your delivery pattern. So rather than masking a habit, we're almost exposing it. So straight away, I'm kind of thinking, all right, the dynamic lie is 59 degrees. We can go flatter. If you don't hold your posture, square the face, kind of compress the ball a little bit more, that thing's going far, a long way right. So it's do we want you to progress with this set, or are you happy with how your swing is now? Which is very, very player dependent. Everyone's different in that regard. If I was to put that question to you, what would you say?
So so what you're saying is, if I went to a flatter club, if my bad habits are then going to be exaggerated. So
Correct.
If I
Lift up.
get steep and stand up through it, it's going to be even worse. You could give me a club that would help me, and it'll be completely different to what the club you're talking about. But if I'm willing to put the work in and try and change my club delivery, so I would probably work towards that or angle towards that if I'm willing to put the time in.
Totally. So, I think when fitting, if you can get the player swinging it in a better way or more efficient manner, like that is absolute gold. That is kind of why we fit, because you're making a significant improvement on the player's actual swing and how they deliver the club. So I'm going to flatten the club out by 2 degrees.
So by flattening the club, now if I deliver it the same way, I should expect it to go right.
High right.
Right?
High right. Because essentially we're opening the face, which then also adds more dynamic loft. So when we open the face, adds more.
So flattening the club, if we're looking at the camera that way. So what are we doing with the club?
It's actually the shaft. So the shaft is tilting closer to the ground.
Okay.
So we're creating less angle here. So this club is now at 61 degrees static lie angle. Okay. So 63 being our standard.
So if the club head is pointing that way and we flatten the shaft, the head stays in the same place, which effectively makes it go that way.
Effectively opens the face. Correct.
Well, this is exciting, Scott.
It's not exciting, Jay.
Interesting that dynamic loft has actually come down. So 25.7, you're kind of up in the 26s. I know it's a very small sample there, but straight away, you've done something, you've made a slight change, which is good.
So I really wanted to try and hit that one the same to see what would happen, but there's obviously something that goes, with knowing that, if I don't, it's not going to end well.
So, strike location, did it feel like that? So obviously
Yeah.
it's come up, it did feel like that? Cool.
I think TrackMan was just trying to save him the embarrassment.
Be nice mode. So, you know, you've had a couple of swings there. How did that last one feel?
It felt like I hit left.
Okay.
In terms of this, I don't think I'll be able to tell the difference from any of the shafts I've hit so far.
Mm-hmm. And that's fine. A lot of the time, not many people can. You know, if I ask them, oh, did that feel heavier? Did it feel stiffer? They're kind of like, not sure.
Yeah.
And like, that's all good. You know, sometimes I'm simply going to ask someone, do you like it? You know, and a lot of time people say yes or no.
That felt a little bit right.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting to see where that one goes.
Yeah, so you can see, you know, maybe there a little bit of exaggeration in the curvature.
Yeah.
Interesting, you know, the previous one, yes, we've hit it a little bit left, but everything's actually come down quite significantly there. So possibly you know, covering the ball that little bit more, maybe just you've probably just shut the face a fraction. Dynamic lock was actually at 22 degrees.
Wow.
So again, you know, dropping it down by 4 degrees is not nothing. Like, that's huge. That is a massive change. So I like seeing that, because we've seen some evidence that, you know, we could start to improve that delivery. The other thing, you know, I wouldn't mind trying with you is, it might be too big of a jump from, you know, you being ½ inch over in your current set, but even looking at ½ inch under. So again, how far can we go with this progression in terms of, you know, exposing your bad habit? Because shortening the club will dynamically flatten the head out more.
Okay.
So we're pretty much pushing the boundaries on how far we can go. So as long as you're kind of comfortable with that shaft, I wouldn't mind you trying to just grip down ½ an inch, hitting a couple and letting me know you like it, hate it, and kind of see the results if anything does change.
At this point in the fitting, or at any point, do I start trying to hit this club straight, or am I still trying to deliver it the same way I've delivered it with all of these, and see what happens?
I think we look at the delivery, and we look at what that actually does to the straightness. So does, you know, de-lofting the club then encourage a bit more of a passive face, or does it encourage a more active face? So at the moment we have seen a little bit of left to right. I'm not too worried about it at this stage. So I know you're a good enough player to adapt and hit it straight. So at this point I'm not super worried.
So we're just gripping down a touch here?
Just gripping down ½ an inch. Yeah. So, talk to me a little bit about that one. Strike, okay.
Wasn't the greatest strike.
Okay.
Felt more different gripping down ½ an inch than I've noticed anything else so far.
Yeah. And I mean, look at the results difference though. And yeah, maybe strike a little bit low, a little bit heel, but spin rates come down significantly, and our height is at 31.7, which could be our lowest for a straight shot today.
Yeah.
So, because you were averaging around the 35 at the start. I think one that you hit a little bit left was 30. So that one there, that's very promising results.
It feels like I've got a lot more control. I didn't strike that first one very well. That felt a lot better. Feels like I've got a lot more control, and actually more of a speed golf shot where I have to take some off and then I'll grip down and felt like I just had more control.
Yeah, no, we like it. I mean, we like more control. Again, what's easier to hit the middle of the club face with? Longer or shorter shaft?
Should be shorter,
Should be shorter. Oof, that one's high. So What happened on that shot there, just out of curiosity?
I feel like I flushed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So dynamic loft's gone
Yeah, okay.
a little bit higher.
Yeah.
You know, whether or not that's just like a little bit of that early release or not, could be. Spin rate's still in a really good window there for you. You know, if we get any higher, that's just going to go to the moon. So, wouldn't mind swapping the golf ball out as well. So, let's get a lower spin ball in there. .4 dynamic loft, really good. Very nice.
Great strike, that one.
Okay.
So
So even if we took that one out, because that height's gone significantly lower because of the strike. You know, we look at these numbers here, height 33, so it's getting into a slightly better window, spin rate 6.5, carry still really good. Dynamic loft, for whatever reason now, we're in the 24s. So, you know, going back to, you know, more at the start, we were close to 27. So the things that we're doing, we're influencing how that club's coming into the ball. I mean, I know it's only a sample of 2, but those shots look almost identical, just a couple of feet, you know, away from each other. How does all of this combination actually feel? Does it feel comfortable, or does it feel like it's a bridge too far?
definitely not a bridge too far. I miss hit plenty of shots. It's not like I'm miss hitting them because of the change. Yeah, it doesn't feel like a bridge too far at all.
I mean, at the moment, I'm really liking the combination. I wouldn't mind seeing you hit a couple more, just to see if, you know, consistency kind of stays there with those launch conditions.
Would you ever ask him to lower the launch dynamic loft? Like, what would he feel like he needs to do or not?
In terms of like his own delivery pattern.
Yeah, like if you just said to him now, how low do you reckon
hit it lower?
That? Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And which we can try if you want. Like, how low do you think you could go? Could you get 22?
That felt like the best shot I've hit so
Cool.
far there.
Cool.
In terms of getting pressure on the ball.
Again, all the numbers are in a really good place. Like 32 height, 6.5 spin. So, you know, straight away the consistency of that has gone up significantly. You know, the height, you know, if you look at the standard deviations there, 0.3 of a difference between all of them. I mean, look at those. Even just looking at those traces is awesome. 23 is the standard deviation for spin rate. So if we want consistency, which was one of the things that we kind of spoke about at the start, I mean, you found it right there. Does it feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, that's taken the couple of forced strikes out.
Just one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, feel nice.
That's really, really cool. I think, you know, let's go.
Yeah.
Good.
So, you know, if we were to challenge you, should we see, what do you reckon, Jay, 20? Would that be too far, you reckon?
A bit low. Strong. Have a go though.
Have a crack. So
just have a crack before talking
Cover
about
drive
how.
on the up, brother.
yeah.
Yeah, there's no how. We don't know how it's going to feel. You know.
Or am I left?
It is low.
13.2. Clocked it first go.
Done.
I think there's a bit of assistance from face angle there.
Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story, AP.
Well, it's close. That's really close. And I tell you what, you look at that peak height there of, you know, 29.1. So to get that on a straight shot, and it looks like you've hit, pretty much out of the middle of the club. That's really promising.
And interestingly, we talked about at the start, that didn't actually feel that good.
Yep.
Even though geometrically it looks quite good, it didn't feel like a great stroke.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that is because you are so used to hitting it out of the heel that feeling is kind of like your centre strike, possibly. So what was, out of curiosity, can you pinpoint a difference between that shot and the previous shot?
No, when I hit that one, it tends to get a bit, feels like just lazy through impact, like no pressure through here, just get up like that.
Got to get in the gravity fit.
Last one, mate, now.
So that looked good. That looked really good. Yeah, it's 23 degrees down out loft. That's close. Heel strike, so ball speed's kind of dropped a fraction there, but how does that actually feel?
Which part?
Just that
you're.
I'd say I think we've kind of got the feedback from you where the shaft and hip feels pretty good, but how does the delivery feel?
Yeah, obviously struggle to hit that low one. But that's probably where I would speak to a coach, I guess, and go, okay, what can I change now to hit that lower? In terms of the club, it feels nice. I don't have any issues there at all.
Yeah.
But then, what would be the next step is
buy them. Happy to do full retail, man. We'll do a deal at the club room.
Then do I go, okay, now the next step is coaching? Or is there more I can get out of that? Because I don't want to just deloft the club.
No.
That seems like an easy fix because
I'm just hitting
the 6 on.
Yeah. And so, that's why we haven't gone into the T150s or the T200s. What would be quite good to look at now is, how do you hit the 5 iron, how do you hit the 4 iron?
Yeah.
Are you still reaching the correct numbers with the longer clubs? Which, grab some of them now. So we want to look at a bit of height and ball speed progression here. So, we've already covered we want all of our clubs to peak out at the same height. We also want to make sure we've got 5 miles an hour of ball speed between each iron. So 7 iron to 6 iron plus 5, 6 iron to 5 iron plus 5. So 7 and 5 iron, which you've got in your hands, so we want plus 10 miles per hour of ball speed. I mean, that first one you've absolutely flushed. Before you have a look at your average ball speed with the 7 iron, it's 120, and the height, 120, and the height is around 33. That shot alone there was 129 and 33.
Sell it.
Straight away we're in the right spot. And to be honest, we don't need to hit anymore. Sometimes we actually only need the one shot. You've hit it out of the middle, you've hit the right numbers, why do you need to hit any more, right?
Pretty much just clocked it there.
So let's double check the 4 iron.
We're sure?
Yeah.
Just clocked it. Give me another level.
So again, if we look at about 135 ball speed here.
Don't tell me that. Try a little harder.
Okay. So straight away we see a little drop in ball speed.
Seem to strike too.
Do we now?
Watch this.
So, not really achieving the ball speed at the moment, kind of that we're after. So just give us one more.
Trying to achieve some ball speed?
Just swing normally. Nice. So that there, 136 ball speed, that's where we want to be.
That felt,
Middle.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that felt better strike-wise.
Okay, so let's, just for argument's sake, let's try the T150 in the 4-iron. So this being a couple of degrees stronger, we're probably going to reach those ball speeds a lot easier. Still gripping down half an inch for me. How did you strike that one?
Yeah, it felt way stronger.
Yeah, and like there, again, 136, quite manageable. Arguably probably wasn't even your best strike, but we achieved the ball speed that we want. Height there of 30 meters, pretty close to where we want to be. So we've kind of got those numbers there. So this is where we're going to look at that blended set, where hey, we'll go up to 5-iron in the T100. And then 4-iron, we're just going to have that little bit of extra help with the stronger loft, lower centre of gravity, just to achieve the launch conditions that we're after.
Yeah.
Does that feel comfortable?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, like how hard is a 4-iron to hit compared to a 7-iron? It's a lot harder. We're just trying to get it on the green somewhere. We're not necessarily trying to attack pins or anything like that.
Yeah.
So we may as well get a little bit of help where we need it. And that's kind of evidence of it right there.
Yeah.
So, look, I really like that combination for you. Is there any questions around what we've kind of done? We've kind of had questions throughout, but is there anything there that you want to know?
No, not particularly. I think, sort of answered them all. And the big one would have been, do I get fit to fix, to mask what I'm doing, or do I get fit for where I want to go? And you answered that pretty well.
Yeah. And it's always up to the player.
Yeah, exaggerating my faults, and then that's just going to make me work harder to try to get to where we want to go with those numbers, rather than just trying to cover up what I'm doing. Because as you said, you can give me something, so if I'm hitting it like this,
it's going to be okay.
Okay.
You're not achieving anything in your own swing or anything like that. And I get, like I said, everyone's different, but the whole point of a fitting is you want to come to get better, or enjoy the game more. How are you going to do that? And everyone will answer that question differently. And that's why, either understanding your player, asking them the right questions at the start. A lot of the time having the coach there is a really good thing too, because they'll kind of give you an understanding of what you're trying to change and what you're trying to achieve. Or, even talking to the coach beforehand, something like that. So we're trying to compound a lot of different little things. So, we've gone, a club that does have a degree or two stronger loft than what you are used to. We're going in a very stable shaft. We've gone shorter, we've gone flatter, we've changed the golf ball. We've also changed a little bit of your delivery pattern, or giving you an understanding as to why this is going to work for you. It's never a lesson in a fitting. It's kind of giving you an engineering lesson, or more understanding of engineering. How is this club designed to be used? It's this way, that way, whatever it may be. I'm not necessarily here to tell you, at P3 or P4 you're in the wrong spot, but this is how the club's designed to be hit well and hit efficiently. So, that was really cool.
Cool.
Beautiful.
Any questions, Jay?
None.
We've already run over time.
Lovely.
All right.
Well, this is slightly awkward because we've got no chair and my hands are kind of there. But I think that was good. Outstanding work. You hit it nicely too.
Yeah, you did actually.
Yeah.
That was a surprise.
Yeah, wasn't a big surprise actually.
Yeah. Must be good difference.
Yeah, must be good clubs those times. Right.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool. Should we wrap it up?
I think we just did, didn't we?
We just did. Yeah.